Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Welcome to the DraftKings Week 16 first look. We're almost done with the entire regular season, and Week 17 is a completely different animal all to itself. If you've never played a full season of Daily Fantasy NFL, you're in for a treat on Week 17. Week 16, we still have most players playing. Week 17 is like a slate of NBA where everything's all over the place. Speaking of Daily Fantasy NBA season tips off on Tuesday night. We have on this channel a playlist, How to Win on DraftKings in Daily Fantasy NBA. There's going to be 4 videos on that. I'm going to be recording, this is Monday when I record this first look. There's going to be 2 new videos added to that. So that's going to be 4 brand new videos added to that to try and help you guys play cash games, tournaments, how to use an optimizer, some suggestions that I have, some really successful guests that I've got coming on those videos, as well as we're going to be having Monday through Friday full slate breakdowns on this channel that'll go up overnight, starring Josh Lloyd from Red Rock Basketball. He is a great daily fantasy mind, great fantasy basketball mind, and he's going to walk you through a game-by-game slate breakdown on every one of those videos. So the content will continue even though NFL season is ending. For those of you who are either looking to transition into NBA for the first time or just get a refresher, go check out that How to Win on DraftKings NBA playlist, and then obviously we'll have content for you Monday through Friday every single day during the NBA season. So I'm looking forward to that. As far as this video, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, leave a reply, click the description down below, follow me on every social, go jump into Discord. If you want to get more involved, click the join button, get that VIP badge, some great emotes. You get access to the VIP only rooms in Discord if you want to surround yourself with all of our members. Over 5,000 members in Discord right now, and it is popping in both the free channels and the VIP sub only channels. So you want to talk about DFS? It can be an isolating game. Whether you're a channel member or not, we give you the option to have that. We've tried to build that community for you to have people to talk to about DFS, because as I said, you're all alone in DFS. It's not a friends and family league. So you can make some new friends. You can talk about strategy, game selection, whatever you want. 24 hours a day, there'll be people there to talk to you. So without any further ado, let's get to the slate breakdown, to the first look here for Week 16. There's a few things that we can do here, and some stuff has opened up, and salaries have changed. And based on the lineup that I have prepared for this, usually I pay down at quarterback. So that means that like guys like Patrick Mahomes, not really in play for the first look lineup, because, and the reason is, well, you know, Patrick Mahomes averages 27.8 DraftKings points per game. Right. He's got a really high floor every single week. Don't you want floor in cash games, Al? Yes, you do. And this is a cash game build that we have. However, the band of scoring at quarterback is much more narrow than the band of scoring at running back, wide receiver, tight end, everywhere else. So I'd rather spend my money at those other positions, which leaves me usually this year. It used to be in the old days, you could find a quarterback for $5,000 to $5,500 every single week. Much tougher. They've kind of changed the pricing on DraftKings. So now I kind of end up between 6K and 7K. Yes, there are guys that are sub 6K. We'll go through a couple of them. So Patrick Mahomes, probably out for me. Love all these guys for tournaments. Lamar Jackson against the Giants. He's picked up recently with 2 straight 30-plus point games, 26 point. This is more in the range that we are used to seeing, or were used to seeing Lamar Jackson, as opposed to the beginning of the year where he was just kind of all over the place and not really connecting, not being as efficient as he was last year, which was impossible. Nobody's going to maintain a 10% touchdown rating, but now he is running the ball a ton, getting good usage, and giving us that floor with his rushing yards, as well as the upside, getting into the end zone 4 times on the ground the last 3 weeks. That's not sustainable, or I shouldn't say it's not sustainable. Rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks are a lot more random than people are willing to admit. So that's why I look at that as upside and not floor. Herbert's now 7,400 going against Denver. Monitor the Denver cornerbacks. Again, I think this is a tournament play. Same with Russ Wilson. Now we get into the cash game guys here. Jalen Hurts from 5,100 to 5,900 to 7,000, and rightfully so. Anytime you can project a quarterback to run the ball, whether designed or scrambles 10 plus times, and some of those are going to be designed runs when you're running it 10 plus times a game, Kyler Murray being in that crowd as well, this should be an 8K quarterback. Now he's not going to throw for 3 touchdowns every week. He's not going to have 330 yards, but he should be at least 7,500. I think he's still underpriced this week at 7,000. And again, looking at the yards that he gets on the ground, if he runs for 50 to 60 yards, he's starting the game with 5.5 or 6 points on the ground. Gives us the rushing touchdown upside, gives us the ability with his arm. This whole Eagles offense looks a lot better with Jalen Hurts than it did with Carson Wentz. Coming down the board a little bit, Ben Roethlisberger, this game has a total of, if I can find it really quickly, it's one of the higher total games on the slate. 46.5, Steelers favored by 2.5. They pass the ball a lot more than they run it, and Indy a tough defense in their own right, but enough passing options that I like Ben, but I don't love Ben. Again, they still play on Monday night this week in a very ugly slog fest on Monday night, so I'm not expecting too much in terms of overall volume and everything else. But if this game does shoot out and goes over that total and is very close, hotly contested, you get that end of the first half, end of the second half run where they've got to throw the ball and move the ball down the field to be competitive with one another as the leads change. This is a game where I think Ben Roethlisberger has access to a 25 to 35 point game in terms of overall upside. Goff against Seattle didn't do much last time against him. He's under 6K. Matt Ryan against Kansas City. Matt Ryan has put it together 1 week out of the last 2 months. Finally got it together against Tampa Bay. You know you're going to get the volume of passing. You know he's going to complete a bunch of passes, but can he keep up with Kansas City? At least they're in a spot where it's a high total game. And again, Mitch Trubisky, who's played exceptionally well recently, but is going up against Jacksonville, who has been really bad against both opposing running backs and quarterbacks. I think that David Montgomery is going to be the play here. But anytime that you think a running back is going to catch a high percentage, it's always great leverage to avoid the running back for tournaments and stack the quarterback with the passing game. For me, for where we are on Monday, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts and see where else we can go in this lineup, leaving us with a couple of running back decisions to make. The first decision that I think that we have to make here, and there's going to be some value, the Chiefs don't have to play CEH. They just don't. Okay, he's got a high ankle sprain and a strained hip. They don't need to play this kid, and he is a electric player who they're going to want to make sure that they have 100% healthy for the playoffs, which means that there's less people around, which means that Le'Veon Bell should be getting the majority of the touches and the snaps at running back. We know that he can catch the ball. We know that he is a viable runner of the football still. He is not dusty, as some folks like to think about. You know, well, he's older. He's not the same player that he was before. Okay, that's fair. But in this offense, does he really need to be? He can still rip off chunk runs, 15 to 25 yard runs. He should be involved enough in the passing game, although they probably won't throw it to him 7, 8, 10 times. And Atlanta has done pretty well against opposing running backs this year, but we saw a lot of passes go to Austin Ekeler a couple of weeks ago. And this is an offense that will score points, and if they get inside the 5 yard line, yes, they get creative on toss sweeps and jet sweeps, but you do have rushing touchdown upside here for only 5,800 against Atlanta. Majorly favored at home, possibly 20 touches in this game. Checks off an awful lot of boxes, potentially a $5 running back, Le'Veon Bell. The high dollar running backs, if you wanted to go with the high dollar running backs, who knows with Christian McCaffrey at this point, if he's going to be back or if he's not. So like, I can't even really talk about him. Austin Ekeler against Denver. Austin Ekeler, you know, is going to be involved in the passing game, probably more so than he was against Las Vegas. This was a very disappointing line for him in that game, especially how many points that offense scored. 7,600 I think is fair. It's fair pricing for him. I'm not against it. David Montgomery has, for you in season long, has been an absolute league winner with his increased volume in the passing game, giving you a much higher floor. He's got one dud game at Tennessee, somewhat predictable in a game that was low scoring in Tennessee, tough against opposing running backs. But he has had the softest schedule from week 12 on. At Green Bay, 28 fantasy points. At Detroit, against Detroit, 27 fantasy points. Houston, another terrible matchup. A great matchup for running backs, terrible defense, 27.5. And at Minnesota, shredded them for 32. 100 yards bonus in 3 of the last 4. 33 touches in week 15. And now he gets Jacksonville. We'll see who Jacksonville puts on the field. This is just an ugly spot, another ugly spot for them. 7,700 I don't think is too much to pay. Although if you wanted to jump off David Montgomery this week, knowing that instead of buying the dip like we talk about on some other players, where if they're not performing well, people are running away. If they're not performing well, their price is going down and you're looking for that low point to buy. If you want to sell high on David Montgomery and avoid him in tournaments this week, I'm with you. I'm all for it. However, the matchup is just too good. The volume is just too good. The touchdown upside is just too good. And if Mitch Trubisky's your quarterback, as much as improved as he is right now versus the beginning of the season, probably still going to be leaning on David Montgomery to try and win you football games. Leaving us one more running back, and it's going to be Nick Chubb against the Jets. Baker's been good. Baker's been very, very good. But the bread and butter for this team is the running game. They are, what is the total in this one? Sorry, I've got it written down there. Browns are 9.5-point favorites, total of 44.5. So like 27, 28-point implied team total for the Cleveland Browns. Nick Chubb should be able to break off a long run in this game, considering that he's broken off more long runs than pretty much anybody in the NFL this season. He's basically Derrick Henry light. And I say light because they do have another running back on the team in Kareem Hunt, and it's hard to say that they're going to give Nick Chubb the ball 25 plus times. So similar type of game to Derrick Henry in the sense that he has big playability, should get the ball inside the 5-yard line. They're massively favored, not going to touch it 25 times. We know that for sure. And has that big, the ability to rip off chunk runs like nobody else, and very minimal usage in the passing game. But at 7,800, I think that we can plug him here in week 16 against the Jets, at least in terms of first look. Let's plug in a defense. Bam. Okay, actually, I don't hate that defense. Seattle's been a much improved. I never talk about defense on first look, but I've made this point a few times. Since that trade for Dunlap, this has been a completely different defense, right? This was the beginning of the year when they couldn't pressure the quarterback. Look at the sacks. They're kind of all over the place. Multiple games with no sacks. 450 yards, 397. They could not do anything. Now that they're getting pressure on the quarterback, they're not allowing any passing. But nothing changed in the defensive backfield. It's this, right? Pressure on the opposing quarterback, and they're only 2,600 against the Rams. So very interesting price for Seattle this week. There, you got some defensive analysis on a random plug and play. At tight end, you guys know how much I'm in favor of Travis KELCE, but that price has gotten up to a point now where I kind of feel like he's tournament only. They've priced him accurately. 8,500. This is rarefied air. Now look at the difference between Travis KELCE and Mark Andrews. It's like 2,800 less to get there. So like, this is hilarious. There's no other way for me to put this. This is hilarious to me that it's like Travis KELCE, bunch of stuff, and that's kind of what we got. I am proud of this gentleman right here. I would like to say that he is probably the best 18 to 20th round best ball pick, or one of them this season, along with somebody like James Robinson. Steady work, has been doing all the dirt for the last month. 4,900 is a lot to pay though, because we do know that he does have this kind of floor, although he has run more routes, played more snaps than any other tight end. That includes KELCE, and that includes Darren Waller. He has run the highest routes per drop back of any tight end in the league, and now he is finally priced accordingly, and has a good matchup against Carolina. Noah Fant, just electric. Higbee not getting the stuff that we want in terms of targets and routes and everything else, so he's a very boom bust play. Has to catch a touchdown for him to pay off. Can't really get there on volume alone. So we're going to look at kind of a cheaper play in here. Dallas Goedert just remains at sub 4K. I think he's too cheap at 3,600. I think he's in play for us. Austin Hooper at 3,500 against the Jets. Certainly in play for us with elevated touchdown upside in this game, considering the defense that they're playing against. Double H, Hayden Hurst, solid. He does need to get into the end zone for us. Schultz, I think, is a little bit out. Graham, I think, is a little bit out. Komet at 3K, still. Komet is going to have this week had this week in week 15 where they just didn't throw the ball a lot. And if they have to throw the ball more against Jacksonville, or if they just do, because that is how teams have beaten Jacksonville, and David Montgomery is not the play in those contrarian stacks, this should be a 37 to 4,200 tight end. He's getting the volume and running the routes of those guys at that price. So I still think that he's way too cheap. Zach Ertz is here at 3,100. He at least saw 7 targets, but like he may be done, but against Dallas, is anybody done? The fantasy carnival still exists in terms of making bad players good. But for this video, going up against Kansas City, I think that they're going to have elevated passing attempts. As long as Julio Jones is out, at least we have a floor of targets for him with possible elevated upside for touchdown. I'm going to go with Hurst in this spot, leaving me 3 wide receivers that I have to go with. There's always going to be cheap wide receivers in 2020. That's just the way that it goes. And they still have to play the Monday Night Football game, so I'll take the risk here. But James Washington is kind of too cheap, considering the matchup, considering the total, considering that he has outsnapped Chase Claypool the last 2 weeks and ran more routes than Chase Claypool each of the last 2 weeks entering this Monday Night Football game. Now, that may change on Monday Night Football. Injuries can happen on Monday Night Football, but this is first look. And for first look, I believe that James Washington is the single most underpriced player, ignoring these touchdowns, at sub 4K right now. There are other plays in that range, guys like Hamler, who has similar targets, like 3 to 5 targets a game. But I'm more comfortable with James Washington at that price, at least on Monday. That I'm free to change that as the week goes on. Again, we have an injury that has created a little bit more upside of targets here for one player, at least in terms of Monday. And again, this is a situation where you have to monitor things as they go on. But Michael Gallup had a hip injury this week. We'll see if he plays this weekend. He's 4,100. If he does not play this weekend, then CeeDee Lamb at 5,300. Very possible he sees more targets this week against a defense that has not stopped any opposing wide receivers. If you'd rather go with Amari Cooper, I get it. I'm fine with that. I'm going to go with the young talent in CeeDee Lamb and the big playability, and added to the low average depth of target that he sees, especially in the absence of Gallup. There's more targets to go around. So I'll plug CeeDee Lamb in that spot, leaving me 6,800, which puts us right here in this range. Julio Jones. If Julio Jones is in, I might change this Hurst play and go to Julio Jones in this spot. Again, we'll monitor as the week goes on. That Atlanta offense much better when Julio Jones plays. Cooper Kupp going against Seattle and how bad their defense has been over the course of the whole season. But if we look at the last month, they've been a lot tougher, which leads me right back here to the F1, Terry McLaurin, and the amount of targets that he's gotten. We suggested buying the dip on him last week at the price that he was at, knowing that the volume was going to increase coming off of 2 extremely tough matchups at San Francisco, at Pittsburgh. Then he drew Seattle, who was just not great against, they played from ahead. They've been tougher against passing games, but like they still allowed a ton of volume to both Thomas and Terry McLaurin. 12 targets for the price that he's at. He's got a 9 to 12 target expectation pretty much every time that he takes the field. And now against Carolina with the touchdown expectation elevated here, maybe Terry McLaurin can get us the bonus. Maybe Terry McLaurin can find his way into the end zone against a defense that is ill-equipped to stop somebody at his price. So there's my first look lineup. Jalen Hurts, Le'Veon Bell, David Montgomery, Washington for value, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Hurst, Chubb, Seahawks defense. Appreciate you guys showing up. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.